start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome you all back for the second session on smart grid. In the first session, we have discussed about the electric vehicle technology and the power converters required for electric vehicle technology, and what are the research perspectives involved in electric vehicle technology. Now, the same thing, but the focus of our topic would be on smart grid. I know it is very tough to cover all the parts of smart grid technology over here. Since the entire week we are going to talk only on smart grid and electric vehicle, I'll be giving you the glimpses of smart grid architecture, why we want to go for a smart grid, the reason behind that smart grid architecture, and what are all the glitches for implementing the smart grid, and being an electrical engineer, and how smart grid can be improved. And if you talk about smart grid, it is not only involved for electrical engineer, because it involves people from instrumentation department, instrumentation engineering, information and communication technology, electronics and communication. It involves the help of all the people to implement smart grid. So it is almost requires the help of all engineering disciplines. So, and how power converters play a major role, and what is the present statistics of smart grid architecture in India? This is the objective of my presentation. So let us start with why smart grid. So if you see the current population in India, 1.2 billion and more, all the people want to live comfortably. If you take the family priorities of Indian scenario, they need TV, washer, fridge. Of course, some of the people might require air conditioner as well. This is an average requirement of a family size of 5. If you calculate roughly, at least about 400 gigawatt of generation capacity must be added just to keep them cool, meaning is just to make people suffice energy for air conditioner and fridge. So this is the current scenario. But if you take current scenario in India, our Prime Minister Modi ji has given the concept of one nation, one India, one grid, one frequency concept, and he said that all the villages are being electrified, meaning is it is possible for all the villages to get connected to the grid, and some of the villages are not get connected, but he has given an option to give people to get connected. So if you see, roughly about 1/3 of Indian villages are not electrified, and to provide at least 1 unit of electricity per day, we require about like 15,000 to 20,000 megawatt of solar capacity. So you know the requirement, and you know the target of 2020 of solar. We need at least 15 to 20,000 megawatt of solar capacity. And if you see the portfolio of present solar energy, it is only around like 0.5 percentage. It requires to be increased by 12 to 20 percentage in energy contribution. Okay, so this is the factor. And if you see the power scenario in India, the capacity is keep on increasing because of the rapid economic growth, the growing population, and people started to move from villages to urbanization, and customers' requirement has become increased. They want quality. They don't want power. They don't want simply power. They want quality power. The industry to run with quality power. Apart from quality, they want reliable power. If I say it is 230 voltage single phase AC, it has to give 230 volt single phase AC. No plus, no minus. So the capacity has become increasing day by day. So to increase its capacity, to meet out this capacity, we need to do one and two things. One is increase the generating capacity, or otherwise use the available generation system with maximum efficiency. So the concerns of all this factoid is there should be a proper fuel mix, generation reliant upon fossil fuel. And this fossil fuels, as we have discussed in the morning session, it has limited capacity because we know the life expectancy rate or expiry date of these primary resources. And even though we call hydropower station as a renewable energy sources, it requires long gestation period. And we believe in import of energy. India, 45% of generating station depends on coal. Even though in India it is possible to dig coal, we have low grade coal. We get high grade coal from nearby countries like Indonesia and Bangladesh. So we are dependent. And because of the increasing level of GHG emissions, because of the greenhouse gas emission, and because of the environmental concern, global warming, we have to go for alternate sources. And there is a strong emphasis on harnessing utility scale renewable generation. In India, if you take renewable energy, it is only possible to generate only through solar, wind, biomass, waste to energy, hydro power station, little bit of oceanic thermal energy conversion, little of tidal energy, infant stage or research level of geothermal. So this is the present statistics of renewable energy generations in India. And as I said, there is a high aggregated technical and commercial losses in India. Overall, on an average, 32% of 32% is the loss. Since we are in Tamil Nadu aggregated and technical losses are 13%. As per static, it should be only 15%. But if you take some east part of India, their transmission and distribution losses are very, very high, goes to 33%. So on an average, 32.08% is the AT&TC losses in India. And we want to supply quality and reliable power. And there is no participation of consumer in energy management. And there is a lack of energy efficient product and lack of awareness of using energy efficient product. So these are all the concerns. And if you see the view of existing power system, from generation, transmission, distribution, and it will be finally giving it to the customer. In the customer side, we have it can be utilized based upon the requirement of the voltage. We have domestic consumer, industrial consumer, or commercial consumer. So this is the view of the existing power station. So if you take smart power generation, so here electricity generating from generation to the utility side, it is one of the complex structure. It requires a lot of component. It is all the components are dependent on other component. Okay, and it is a process of generating electricity from either renewable energy sources or non-renewable sources. There are many sources available to generate power. So we want to, as of now, the generation stations and the receiving are one-way flow, and we want this flow to be happen in two ways. So that is why I can call a generating station a smarter power generating station. So the key performance indicators of any power plant, if you take a power plant, either it could be a diesel power station or a coal power station or a thermal power station or otherwise nuclear power station, why not a solar power station or a wind energy station. The key performance indicators are the power plant have to be competitive in nature. And we don't want power plant to be operative in optimal performance. It should be competitive in nature at least. And some power plants operate in very, very base load, and some of the power plants may operate in intermittent load. Okay, and some of the power plant are providing a backup power to the existing generating station. So we need to operate on the capacity of the power plant. So it will be clear that base load plants have low fuel cost, that peaking plants should need relatively low investment. And the intermittent load plants are somewhere in between these two aspects. So a power plant can be calculated, their performance can be calculated based upon a factor called as PLF, or a capacity factor. Plant load factor or a capacity factor. PLF of coal power station is good. PLF of solar power station is not that much good when it is being compared to the coal power station, right? So PLF can be classified. PLF can be not classified, can be calculated based on the type of the load of the power plant. So these are all the key performance indicator of the power plant. If you take the power plant scenario in India, there are huge political decision makers. Challenges are involved in power plant scenario. There are many uncertainties about fuel availability, emission limits, and economic developments. And there is also a competition in urban market, and it is not common all over the India. If you take Tamil Nadu, I don't think that I'm taking example of Tamil Nadu alone. Since we are in Tamil Nadu, just an example, I'm taking Tamil Nadu. If you take Tamil Nadu, we believe only in TANGEDCO, DESCOM. Okay, TANGEDCO believes in what? Their own generating station, central power station, and some private players. If I don't like TANGEDCO, I don't have any option except that I need to generate power by myself. Okay, so but in other states they can go for some private players as well. Okay, if you take the flow from the utility to the government, it goes like this. It starts from Ministry of Power. Okay, I thought of putting a slide for it, but since all are faculty members, some of them know about the power flow in India. It starts from the Ministry of Power. From the Ministry of Power, it will come to the CEA, Central Electricity Authority. CEA as well as BEE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency. From the Central Electricity Authority, it will come to the CERC, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. Central Electricity Regulatory Commission will have the control of what? Transmission, generation, distribution. Okay. From the CERC, if you go to the SERC. SERC means State Electricity Regulatory Commission. From the State Electricity Commission, we have what? Transmission, generation, distribution, utilization. From the State Electricity Regulatory Commission, it will go to the corresponding DISCOM. Here in Tamil Nadu, we have TANGEDCO, Tamil Nadu Generation and Distribution Company. Right? So from January 10, 2006, all the electricity board has been changed to a company. Right? So this is the power flow. From the TANGEDCO, I can have different types of utilization. Either I can have a domestic consumer or an industrial consumer or a commercial consumer. Again, in commercial, we have like PSUs or private sectors. So this is the flow. So here, if you take from CEA to the utility as a domestic consumer, it will be a single power flow from that point to the consumer level. But if we take a smart power generation or a smart grid, it will be a two-way communication. Okay. So problem in renewable energy systems are, as I said, predominantly in Indian scenario, we may be using a solar PV system or a solar thermal system or a wind energy conversion system. Rest are all in a very, very minimal level. Maybe we can use biomass or waste to energy, etc. But all these are all very, very uncertain, because solar may be peak during the summer season, right? But of course, in Indian scenario, out of 365 days, 285 days you can see the sun, you can get the output from the sun. But if you take wind energy conversion system, it will be having its peak only during the month of July to September. Rest all the months you need to get only minimal output. If you want to get output throughout the year, you need to design a motor or a generator set with an efficient system or a technology wherein which should respond even for a very, very low wind speed. But the problem is, overall, all the output from the renewable energy systems are uncertain. Assuming that a particular, because of that, PLF of solar PV and wind energy conversion systems are very low when it is being compared to the conventional sources. So on the whole, what we want is the entire system can believe in renewable energy systems, or otherwise it should support the substation which is having a lesser capacity or a poor generating station. So if I want to support it, what I want to have my generating station to have two-way of power flow. So for that, we need smart power generation. So if you see the electric power system, this is the flow. Like it consists of so many components. Like it consists of wires, cables, towers, circuit breakers, transformers, and all these components are interrelated, and all these components are closely packed. And all the components cannot work individually. It has to come from one way to another way. It should be in a one-way flow system. So right from market, operating center, the power generation, transmission, distribution, and the customer use. This is the power flow, right? Market and the power market varies because electricity is a commercial commodity. If you go and check the POSACO website, you can find out the price, unit pricing of per day at this moment, at this point of time. So, and there is a separate market for that. And that market can be operated based on the input. They will have a separate operating center. They will give how to generate based upon the gap, demand and the supply. If you take India, the demand and supply is very huge, like almost 15% or to 15 to 18%. You have that gap between the demand and supply. That gap can be minimized only by introducing or installing new generating station. But if I want to install a new generating station, it requires 4.5 to 5 crores for generation systems alone, and 2 to 2.5 crores for transmission and distribution systems alone. And it requires minimum of 5 years. So down the line, if I want to plan a generating station for the present demand, if I install a new generating station, it will require 5 years to complete the entire project, and the 5 years to power up the power generating station. So it is a long period of time. And another option, the best option is run the generating station with minimal losses. Minimal losses in the sense, if at all, if there is any power cut because of the power cut parameters or indices like blackout, power brownout, power outage, power shortage, power quality problem, etc., then correspondingly other network should support you. That can be possible only by implementing a smarter power generating station, or the existing system should be in a position to identify or predict this fault, and it should react to it instead of manual restoration. So these are all the requirement of a smart grid technology. So what we need to address is, we need to give energy to all, energy access and energy security. The key, if you take India's policy, India's energy policy, we call it as integrated energy policy. Three main policies, every electrical engineer should remember this: energy access, energy security, national action plan, and climate and change. These are all the key energy policies for Indian scenario. Based on these three key energy policies, all the 5-year plan will come into the existence. So based on that, they will have a target on generating station, solar PV generation, etc., etc. So the first address to be, the first challenge is energy access and energy security. And we want more information from more points. For example, if I have a substation, let us say in my area, let us say 65 DTs are there, distribution transformer. I need to know the performance of each and individual distribution transformer on my table. So for that, apart from metering it, I need to put sensors all over, and I need to integrate all the distribution transformer in such a way that if at all, if there is any problem in one of the DT, it should be intimated to me immediately. And there should be an automated ways of handling the information. Like 65 transformers in my sector. If you take the city on the whole, I will be having more distribution transformers depending on the consumer. So my DT should react in a proactive way. Okay, and I have to automate the entire system.
Sir, your audio is muted, sir. Ashok, sir.
When my audio was muted, Archana?
Yes, just now. You just
I don't know why it is happening all of a sudden.
Now it's connected.
Did you hear about this topic? This is slide?
Yes, sir. Just now it got muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fine. Yeah, traditionally, the grid should have all these 4 parameters. Thanks. Please remind me whenever it is getting muted.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay. Traditionally, power grids are generally used to carry power from a central generating station to the customer side. This is the traditional way. That is a one-way communication. And if you see the example of the traditional power grid, you have power generating station either from nuclear, coal, oil, or hydro, whatever it is. And you have a transmission system, and finally it will be distributed based on the customer, like residential, commercial, or industrial. And if you speak in terms of voltage, we have transmission generating of a particular capacity, and that can be stepped up to a particular voltage. We have 765, 665 kV also there, 500, 345, 230, 138 kV transmission line. From that, it will be stepped down to a particular level based on the substation's need. So this is the way in which it can be transmitted from generation to the customer side. So how we can control or convert the conventional grid to a smart grid? Okay, the smart power generation can be met with a number of high performing generating units. It should be run in parallel, and each and every generating station and each and every consumer should run independently without any dependence on the generating station. And power plants should be work in a competitive environment, and it should run whenever required. When we switch on a system, the time taken to switch, when we switch off a system, I'm sorry, when we switch off a system and the time taken to power the system, when we switch on it again, it is a long period of a time. Okay, so that has to be minimized. So the problem is when the supply or electricity grid is having common cost fault, and it is not possible for us to restore the fault immediately during the conventional way of doing the rectifying the problem. So that can be done, that can be rectified with sensors placing all over the places. So a smart grid goes like this. A smart grid also called a smart electrical power grid, intelligent grid, IntelliGrid, future grid, intra-grid, intergrid. So these are all the synonyms given for the smart grid. It uses two-way flows of electricity, and it delivers power in a more efficient way, and it will respond to the event that occur anywhere in the grid. And it is another very, very important point. It is a loose integration of complementary component. It is not a rigid dependent component. All are individual all are individual entity, and all are smart entity. Okay. So if you see the concept of smart grid in India, it was introduced mainly for addressing the challenge of demand side management. So what they did is, like, they introduced the concept of a new technology called as advanced metering infrastructure. So advanced metering infrastructure was mainly introduced to improve the demand side management, and it is one of the energy efficient and self-healing concept. Okay, demand side management in the sense, in the meter, I don't know how many of you know about the difference between contract demand and maximum demand. Let us say I have an industry where in which their contract demand is 10 kVA. Okay, and 10 kVA is nothing but the 10 kVA is the supply requirement that industry requested from the DISCOM, and they have supplied to the particular industry. But that industry's maximum demand may be 8 kVA or less than 8 kVA. So what that industry should do is they have to control that maximum demand on that particular market. Why? If you calculate the electricity bill of an industry, it is based on kVA and kWh. But for a domestic consumer, the electricity bill will be calculated based on kilowatt hour. But for an industrial sector, the electricity bill will be calculated based on kVA and kWh. So every industry should minimize the maximum demand, because if that maximum demand persists for 30 minutes of time interval, that time interval, that MD will be calculated. Let us say out of 10 MVA, if that particular industry goes to 9 MVA for 30 minutes of time, then the entire electricity bill will be calculated for that 9 MVA, not for that lesser MVA. So in that way, advanced metering infrastructure mainly included in India for implementing the concept of smart grid, mainly to reduce the demand of that particular industry. So what is smart grid? So if you take smart grid, it is nothing but it is a mixture of hardware, software, communication protocol, etc. Okay, it involves a lot of communication between the customer to the generator, customer generator to the transmission side, transmission to the distribution side, etc. One such example is, since we know very well about the distribution side, in the distribution side we have a lot of transformer. Each and every transformer should communicate to each other, as well as it should communicate to the customer. In that way, each and every transformer should have some sensor. So smart grid is something like energy internet. Meaning is, internet communicates with us with the help of wireless protocol. And in between that, to open up a particular server, it needs particular server, etc. Similarly, the smart grid involves so many communication protocol. Even in smart grid, we have a cyber security protocol, we have a theft problem, many things are available. So we need the help of information and communication technology, hardware people, communication people, etc. So for example, if at all if there is any transformer failure, medium voltage transformer may be available in the transmission side. And if at all if there is any problem occurs, there are two things. One is it has to be restored immediately, or the problem should be predicted in prior and it should react in a proactive manner and should rectify it. Similarly, if at all if there is any high load demand, load demand should be shaved. It should be shaved in such a way that it should not go to the peak always. Okay, so that is the example of smart grid. So if you take the difference between the existing grid and the smart grid, existing grid is nothing but it consists of electromechanical sensors, but smart grid is nothing but it consists of only digital sensor. As I said, it is a one-way communication. Here it is a two-way communication. It is a centralized generation. Only one generating stations available. Here it is a DER, distributed energy resources or distributed generation. And everywhere sensors are placed, and it is self-monitoring and self-healing system. And adopting and islanding is also possible, because one power generating station fails, the entire system may get collapsed and there will be a complete blackout or brownout. But in the case of a smart grid, it can operate in an adaptive or an islanding mode. It has limited control, but it is a pervasive control. Okay, so NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, they have defined smart grid as smart grid can be regarded as an electric system that uses two-way information like cyber secure communication technology and computational intelligence in an integrated fashion across everywhere, generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption, to achieve a system that is clean, safe, secure, reliable, resilient, efficient, and sustainable. I have simply mentioned the adjectives here, but to make a grid which is of a clean in nature, safe in nature, secure in nature, it needs a lot of components to be integrated into it. So they have defined a grid, a smart grid, by having this kind of definition. Apart from that, NIST has mentioned the model for a smart grid. These are all the stakeholders of smart grid. So it should have markets. Earlier we have seen one block diagram from markets to the consumer, but all are not interrelated. But here all the people are interrelated and these people can communicate with each other. So market, operation, service provider. Normally that will be the communication point. From the service provider, it will come to the customer, that's it. Okay. But now from the market, operation, service provider, GTD, customer, all can communicate with each other. How? Let us say I have a solar PV system in my home. In future, even now net metering concept are available. Technically, it has no problem in connecting my solar PV system to the existing grid, but we need to bother about the tariff, etc. That need to be consolidated. But in future, as a customer, let us have a solar PV system in my home. I can communicate to the market player directly. Only thing is, I cannot sell it to my neighbor, but I can sell it to the market, right? So that is possible if and only if all these model are connected together. Okay. So here I have given the role of each and every stakeholders in that smart grid model. So customer, market, service provider, operations. GTD, you know, generation, transmission, and distribution, you know about it. Markets, the operators and participants in electricity market. Like POSACO is, I say, it is one of the government website, and they will decide the cost of this electricity since it is a commercial commodity. So if you see the key characteristics of the smart grid, like it involves modern sensor technology, measurement technology, communication technology, ICT, etc. And mainly the smart grid enable active participation by the customer, and it should accommodate all generation storage points. It enables new products, services, and markets, provide power quality for the digital economy. Any questions by the audience? Okay, thank you. So it should optimize asset utilization and operate efficiently. And apart from that, mainly it should anticipate and respond to the system disturbances. And it should operate resiliently against attacks and natural disasters. Because of the natural disaster, there may be a blackout, complete power outage. But my smart grid should be in a position to accept that natural disaster, and it should act accordingly. That is called as resilient. Okay, so these are all the key characteristics of the smart grid. These 7 key characteristics are nothing but the objectives what I have mentioned in the definition of the smart grid. Okay. So having those definitions in mind, electrical engineers and other engineers can concentrate mainly on these blocks of smart grid. Okay. So if you think smart grid, you mainly focuses on generation, transmission, distribution, and utilization. But if you take the overall block diagram of smart grid, it can have 3 major subsystems, like smart infrastructure system, smart management system, smart production system. Okay, excuse me. Because since the entire structure has to be controlled in a two-way flow, we should have a strong topology or a protocol to communicate between each other. So that can happen if you classify it properly. So if you take like this is the smart grid. We have a smart production system, smart management system, smart infrastructure system. So each and everything has its own subclassification, where all the engineers have to work hand in hand to make a grid a smart grid. So in the case of smart infrastructure system, SIS means smart infrastructure system. You have a smart energy system. In the smart energy system, it can be classified into power generation, power transmission grid, and distribution grid. Conventionally, we'll be having generation, transmission, and distribution. But we are taking that three major part into a common protocol. We call it as a smart energy subsystem. That smart energy subsystem comes under smart information system, right? So under each and everything, we have different methods. So for example, if you have smart information system, that information should have the metering, monitoring, and measurement. And how do we measure it? We have a smart meter. For example, since in India, we are only in the level of metering, I can spend 2 minutes of time in mentioning how far we have achieved in metering concepts. Earlier, we had analog meter only for energy meter calculation. We know how the energy is being calculated in India. It is a 2-part tariff system, or otherwise you have availability-based tariff system, or TOU, time of use tariff. These are all the tariff system used in India. Okay. So in metering structure, earlier we had used analog meter, and because we have the analog meter, there are a lot of scope for pilferaging. You know pilferaging. Pilferaging is nothing but electrical theft. But that is being avoided by implementing the concept of a digital meter. So in digital meter, it is sealed, completely sealed. You cannot tamper it. Analog meter, you can tamper it very easily, and you can avoid paying electricity bill even though you have used it to the fullest. But in the digital meter, it is not possible. To the advanced level, digital meter was converted to a concept called as net metering. Net metering, it is available in the market. The concept of net metering goes like this. Assuming that you have a solar PV system in your home, whenever you generate electricity, apart from using it for your own application, the same thing can be connected back to the grid, right? So if I do so, you have to know how much energy I have generated, and how much I have used, and how much I have exported. So you need to have 2 meters. Apart from using it from the TANGEDCO or from the DISCOM, you will be exporting it. So you have 2 meters, import meter and an export meter. So import meter will just tell you how much energy you have consumed from DISCOM. Export meter will tell you or count how much energy you have uploaded or supplied back to the grid. Okay, if you have both the meters, if you have both the counters, not a meter, if you have both the counters showing 0, 0, it means that whatever you have imported, that you have exported it, you no need to pay the electricity bill. Okay, but in the case of second option, if the export meter is higher than the import meter, then the market player, depending on the correct value, current value of the electricity unit, you people will be paid. If the import meter is higher than the export meter, you need to pay to the TANGEDCO or DISCOM. So this is how the net metering concept will work. But the problem here is how to repay back to the customer. And since the electricity value or price is volatile, what price I have to fix it? Okay, in Tamil Nadu, the TANGEDCO is getting power from Madurai Power, one of the power generator, and they are getting it for 1 unit cost around like 14 rupees approximately, right? So if I am generating it, how should I give it? And not how should I, what amount they should pay to me? Another important factor is, let us say I have 100 houses in my area. On one particular day, 100 houses are giving back to the DISCOM. How they should accommodate it? On another particular day, on another particular day, if only 2 houses are generating, rest 98 houses are using it for their own application, how the substation should balance the load? So these are all the aspects we need to address while implementing the concept of smart grid. Okay, so in the case of smart monitoring and measurement, we have implemented sensors everywhere, right from transmission to cabling part, etc. Apart from that, PMUs have been installed in India. So in India, we are in the level of implementing in the meter level as well as in the monitoring level. So this is the present statistics of smart grid architecture in India. For example, if you take this block diagram will tell you a clear picture of smart meters, etc. So assuming that I have been consumed with all these types of components and this is being calculated in a meter, energy meter, I call it as a smart meter since it is being involved in the smart grid architecture. So this will happen for all the houses, and from it can also be from an industrial user and as well as from the commercial user, and all the data can be calculated in a data aggregator or a concentrator, and from there I can give it to the distribution substation or to the utility. So this communication, how it will happen? Is there any standard protocol available, or otherwise I can use it my own? I can use my own protocol. And what should be the standard? How energy flow from inward to outward, again coming back to the customer side. These are all the aspects. These are all the challenges we need to address. So in India, the technology integration and grid management features are, we have implemented phase or measurement technique, and we have implemented wide area measurement. We are doing one project called as WAMPAC, right? Wide area measurement, phasor and control, and we are doing it along with Thailand and Indonesia. What we do is, like, we will be implementing a system that can be utilized. We will be, in the sense, India and Thailand will implement a system, develop a system, and that will be implemented in Indonesia, and we are going to test it. Okay, and based on the components used inside that, we have to design an efficient FACTS devices, and they should be having a capacity of adaptive landing, self-healing grids. So these are all the technology integration we require to convert a grid into a smart grid. Fine. So as I said, we have already implemented the concept of smart metering and AMI, advanced metering infrastructure, and presently we are trying to implement PMUs everywhere. So what do you mean by PMU? Phasor measurement unit or measuring unit. So they are devices which uses synchronization signals from GPS satellite and provide the phasor voltage and phasor current measured at a given substation. So for the researcher who are listening this presentation, if you want to do some research in the field of smart grid, what you want to do is you try to simulate PMUs in any of the simulation tools. Okay, and PMU is nothing but you should have a proper methodology to sense the current in a IEEE bus system or any other system. Okay, sense the current, sense the voltage. Apart from sensing it, you have to sense it whenever the fault occurs along with the timestamp, along with the GPS system. Okay, why is it so? Why it is required? We'll see now. If you see the benefits of PMU, it will come along with the time synchronized data, and it is not a static data; it is a dynamic one. Okay, and it directly provides the phase angle. Okay, it won't estimate the state. Okay, instead it will give an exact measurement of the state. Okay, and even if there is any minute disturbances in the overall system, it can be assessed. Okay, and high data rate and lower data retention is also possible. Presently, SCADA functions are being used everywhere. What it does, SCADA functions provides energy management. It will tell you the peak load, the status of the transformer load, it operates, it will tell you what is the status of the breaker, the tap changer, OLTC, online tap changer. It will tell you about APFC, automatic power factor controller, with the help of the capacitor banks, etc. All these things can be controlled with the SCADA functions. You might have seen in RLDC, regional load dispatch center, in your area. Okay, but if you compare SCADA functions and PMU function, many might have asked what is the basic difference between SCADA and the PMU, because SCADA itself will do the automotive function of GTD, generation, transmission, as well as distribution. Leave the generation part; it will distribute it automatically. But in the case in the case of a SCADA, it will just estimate it. You can just approximate the value. But in the case of PMU, it will exactly measure, and apart from the measurement, it will give along with the timestamp, so that you will come to know about exact time and location of the fault, and you can heal it easily. If you take, for example, it is easy for us to implement the concept of PMU. PMU requires what? Yes, apart from simple CTPT measurement. CTPT is mainly used for sensing the current and sensing the voltage. Apart from that, you have to have a GPS system for getting the timestamp. And of course, apart from measuring current, voltage, timestamp, the entire thing can be given to a converter for controlling applications. Okay, you can give it to your students. You can give it to a student for developing a PMU. First, you can simulate it with the help of a PMU, with the help of a MATLAB, and next you can implement it with the help of certain controller. Okay, the controller, again, it is upon your parameter. Okay, so again, if you see the difference from the graph, you can clearly understand the importance of PMU. If you see the SCADA measurement, there is a long gap in the variations, and that cannot be measured with the SCADA. But in the case of PMU, even a minute difference, the refresh rate and the sample rate of PMU measurement is very, very fast when it is being compared with the SCADA measurement. Okay. So what is synchro phasor technology? With the phasor technology and phasor measurement units, we have power system measured states and not estimated. Okay, you should know the difference between estimation and measurement. And it is not a static system. It can measure the dynamic data, and with this, which is having high resolution data, and it is having the ability to compare regions due to time synchronized data. If you visit the load dispatch center, even though all this load dispatch center is being operated with the help of optical fiber communication, there is some lag that can be avoided, and all the LDCs are operated with the help of SCADA. But that can be avoided with the help of PMU. Okay. So what is the usefulness of a synchro phasor technology? the technology addresses how do we know what is going on in the grid where SCADA cannot monitor, right? It is not possible to implement a SCADA technology for a local substation. It can be implemented only in LDCs, but PMUs can be implemented everywhere, okay? And from there we can get the data, and was there an event, when, where, what kind, after effects can also be monitored with the help of PMUs. And we can also check whether the system is really stressed and what are the real-time margin, meaning is stress in the sense what? Certain impact on the load, certain interest current. So that can be monitored with the real-time data. Or there are unstable oscillatory modes in the system. If you take a power quality parameter, there are so many power quality parameters are there. Like you can take oscillatory, you can take notch, you can take interharmonics, you can take voltage sag, swell. Apart from that, one more parameter is that is not being considered as of now. It is going to become a very big trouble in future. The frequency which is being generated in the range of 2 kilohertz to 15 kilohertz, and those harmonics are called as a supraharmonics. So how my system will get react? The system will get stressed when these kind of supraharmonics will take place. These supraharmonics will occur whenever you implement a system which consists of semiconducting devices. You take any device, you can take the device made up of MOSFET or IGBT or GaN devices. You have that range of frequency from 2 kilohertz to 15 kilohertz. If my system operates in that range, there will be a huge power outage and the system will get collapsed. How to monitor that? And what issue will arise when the percentage of renewable energy and intermittent source of power will increase to 20 to 30%. During July to September, a lot of wind. It is a wind-prone region, wind-prone time. How my system will react for the sudden impact? So these things can be addressed with the help of implementing synchrophasor technology. And apart from that, some new paradigm technologies are available. That is like microgrid. See, earlier, if and only if we have a large dam, it is possible for us to develop a hydropower station. But now, if you have have a small pond, it is possible to implement hydropower station, and that is called as MHT, micro hydro power station. Okay. So any micro hydro in the sense, microgrid in the sense, not only micro hydro, anything like 10 kilowatt system, 100 kilowatt system, small wind turbine system which is having capacity lesser than 10 kilowatt. So how these system will give an impact on a larger system? Okay, that is going to be a research. And how grid to vehicle and vehicle to grid. This we have discussed in the electric vehicle technology, and how these are all the new paradigms and new research areas you people can concentrate. Okay, next. In the smart information, since still we are discussing those basic block diagram, the last one in the smart information system is the smart communication system. Basically, this communication can be classified into two: wireless and wired communication. If you take a wireless communication, you have huge range of communication methodology. In the case of wired communication, only two: fiber optic communication. Already we are using that, and PLCC, power line carrier communication. But in the wireless communication, since I said during the starting of my presentation, smart grid is nothing but energy internet. So I need to use all the protocols which is being used for internet technology. I should use wireless, cellular, cognitive radio, IEEE, satellite communication, micro, all the communications to be used. So how I have to address all these protocols, all this communication protocol? Should I need to have a common protocol which is compatible for all the systems? System, I mean all the switchgear components. So I need to bother about IEEE 61850 protocol, right? And in the smart management system, this is where you people need to concentrate on pricing aspect. So since this is a volatile market, because during July to September, I have more wind. Okay. During summer season, I have more sun. So during that time, more number of people will generate more energy, and the price will obviously get reduced. So how to address this kind of system? So that can be controlled with the help of a smart management system. It involves energy efficiency in demand profile, unit utility, cost and price, and emission. Emission, of course, if you generate energy by solar, The emission, the part is a separate topic of itself. Like if you generate energy with solar, you can get a certificate called as REC, Renewable Energy Certificate. Okay, so that you can bid it and you can get money out of it, right? So those aspects will come under smart management system. And there are so many management tools. Here you can concentrate on doing research, PhD work in this area. Like how to manage this, how to optimize this, how to determine different types of faults. I said our smart grid is a self-healing grid and it should be proactive in nature. So if I want my system to work like a human being, then I have to implement the concept of GA and ANN, and I have to make the machine to learn by itself. If I take a transformer, the transformer should identify his own fault and it should heal by itself. Then I want my machine to learn by itself, so I have to implement the concept of machine learning to identify different types of faults and different ways in which that faults can be rectified. And to optimize the system, there are different types of optimization algorithm. As I said, I want to use the minimal minimal loss, maximum efficiency, minimal fuel, maximum efficiency. I have said these two, minimum and maximum, and the minimum and maximum, it can mention many parameters, right? And I have different types of algorithm like PSO, one of the standard algorithm available, and still people can do wonders by implementing different types of algorithm. I have mentioned only basic algorithm. Under each and every algorithm there are many classifications. So all this comes under smart management systems. Next comes the smart production system. Like presently I can use fuse, relays, breakers, okay, to identify the faults, etc. And how to mechanize that fault production system? There are two ways: fault failure prediction and prevention. Here comes the importance of reliability of system and failure identification, diagnosis, and recovery. Okay, I said simply self-healing of a system. The self-healing will take place if and only if I can identify the problem correctly. If I identify the problem correctly, I can rectify it correctly within no point of time. So I need to develop a smart production system in such a way that it should address all the types of failures. Next comes the transmission grid. Like so far we have discussed about different topic of generation part. In the transmission side, again the system can be classified based upon smart control center, smart power transmission network, and smart substation. I'm not going to develop a new substation which is of smart enough, but what I'm going to do is like I'm going to retrofit the system. Retrofit in the sense I'll be having an existing system. I'll add a subsystem to that existing system to call a system a smart system. Okay, so in a way, a control center can be called as a smart control center, smart power transmission network, and smart substation, mainly to help or improve the power utilization, power quality, secured system, and reliable system. Okay. So the challenges in the system operations are like there are wide variations in the generation. Like in this lockdown, during this pandemic, you can see many industries are shut, right? So, but they have not shut down the generating station. Then where they should supply all this generated power, they should have a methodology to distribute it properly, right? But these loads are seasonal load. There may be a variations in the day-wise, week-wise, month-wise, as well as in the season-wise. That should reflect where in the open electricity market. Because based on if I have more supply than the demand, my per unit cost may get decreased to anything. If there are more demand than the supply, then open electricity market will play like anything in their requirement. And these analysis should be based on the steady state information in a deterministic way. For this, we have to provide an optimization algorithm for controlling the overall structure of the system. So for the distribution grid, the most important problem is how to deliver power to serve the end users better. See, here I just want to tell you people a research topic because our distribution transformers are available everywhere, right? And of course, all the distribution transformer work efficiently with an efficiency of 95 to 90 to 95%. But now people wants the transformer to work in an efficiency of 99.99%. That can happen if the transformer is of a amorphous core transformer or K-rated transformer. Apart from that, if I am able to monitor the parameters of the transformer, then that transformer can be called as a smart transformer. It is nothing but intelligent universal transformer, in which each parameters of the transformer can be monitored individually, and if at all if there is any problem occurs, we can rectify it immediately, or otherwise proactively the transformer can react for the problem which is going to happen, and it can self-heal itself. So that is the solution we have to give it in the terms of distribution grid. So why smart grid and what are all the challenges? Like it can integrate, it can have many type of challenges, right? You can take from smart generating station to the utility side. We need to address many problems, right? So smart grid enables better energy management, because earlier it was a one-way flow. Now it is from the multiple direction, so that we need to provide proper management system for managing all the income, and there should be a proactive management of electrical network during emergency situations like power outage, blackout, brownout, etc. And that we have to minimize the demand and supply. Okay, the gap between the demand and supply is always there in the world, right? We cannot generate more. At the same time, we cannot generate less. But we have to optimize it in such a way that it should meet the break-even point. And apart from that, we have to give quality power. And that quality power will lead to reduced carbon dioxide emissions. So these are all the requirements why we have to go for a smart grid. And if it is being implemented, it leads to deliver sustainable energy, increased efficiency, empower consumers, and it can improve the reliability. Ultimately, it may lead to a technology called as a smart grid technology. So if you see the benefits of smart grid from the customer point of view, awareness about consumption pattern, reduction in energy bill. See, for a domestic consumer, we no need to bother about how electricity bill is being calculated, right? But for the for the industrial consumer, the electricity bill is being calculated based upon so many parameters. Basic parameters: what is their MD, what is their CD, what are all the fuel cost, what is their power factor value, okay, and what are the power quality harmonics, what are the harmonic level they have maintained it, okay, rental charges of the meter. So many factors they need to consider. And if at all, if the particular industry uses steam for their factory, then they have to install a cogeneration plant. And what is the cost of the fuel use which is being used for the coal power, cogeneration plant? So those aspects need to be considered for calculating the electricity bill. So similarly, demand response of the system can be calculated, and demand responses has to be integrated in the system itself. And reliability of the power supply. If I say I'm giving a 440 voltage, always I have to give it 24 hours, 365 days. Then only I can get full efficiency from my system. If I give a low input, obviously I will be getting a low output. So I have to believe on what? Reliable power supply. And apart from that, improved customer satisfaction. But from the utility point of view, if you implement smart grid technology, it may reduce the AT&C losses, and it is easy for us to meet out the peak demand and demand side management. And obviously, the power outage can be reduced in the feeder side. So smart grids for India, it is mainly used for reducing the distribution losses, decentralize it, okay, decentralize the power generating station, explore alternate methods of storage, handle peak demand, and peak demand can be handled at local level, neighbor level, etc. So load shedding can be addressed properly, and it can also enable time of day meeting. That is what I said. In India, we have used a two-part tariff system and availability-based tariff, or otherwise TOU-based tariff system. So if you implement smart grid technology, time of day or time of use tariff system can be easily implementable. That is a user-friendly tariff system. So if you see the vision of a smart transmission grid, it involves all the blocks. See, we have discussed about this block only. There is smart transmission network, smart control center, smart subsystem, etc. Apart from that, it involves, so this is also we have discussed, fundamental driving forces for implementing the smart grid. Apart from that, every component in the smart grid should be digitalized. Okay, and it should be user friendly, and it should be flexible enough. Flexible in the sense, a particular substation, if it is able to get a capacity of 1 kV, if I'm generating 2 kV, then it should be in a position to accept that 2 kV, 2 kV voltage level. So that is the flexibility of each and individual components used in the smart grid. And it should be intelligent enough to identify the faults and react to it, and it should be resilient, meaning is it should deliver secure and reliable power supply. And of course, it should be sustainable, and it is customer friendly. These are all the parameters I have to monitor, I have to implement for a grid to be a smart grid. And to achieve that, what we want to do is, like, we have to apply technologies which is of a smart control center, smart transmission network, and smart substation. In the case of a smart control center, I'm not going to describe elaborately, because already we have discussed it. What do you mean by smart control center? We should have a method to monitor and visualize the faults. Instead of having SCADA functions alone, we should implement RTUs and PMUs everywhere. Okay, PMU with GIS and GPS technology, and each and every system should have the analytical capability. Purpose of this is we should have a dynamic online tool for classifying the fault and for rectifying the faults. Okay, and it should have proper controllability. If at all, if there is any fault in a particular substation, immediately the nearby substation should take over, and it should give a reliable power supply to the customer. Okay, and it should interact with the electricity market. As I said, this market is one of the stakeholders in the domains or actors of smart grid, and each and every player, every stakeholder in that smart grid technology should communicate to the electricity market. And in the smart transmission network, many researches are going on for implementing smart transmission network, because I will be generating more power, right? And how to transmit in a smart way? I have to go for highly efficient transmission network, right? And I have to implement FACT devices. I have to use advanced power electronics for identifying the fault, self-healing the fault, and my transmission network should be robust enough to handle different kind of situations. And I should have facility to maintain properly, because every time when fault occurs, to restore it and supply it again, I need to have all the system which can react independently. Okay. And in the smart substation, almost now all the substations are trying to work in a digital way, but some of the substations still using the conventional way of communication. And they should have a strong coordination between the market players and the substation itself. And they should have smart sensing and measurement, communication, etc. And these are all the points you have to check while including the smart communication system. Fine. So in the starting of my presentation, I said in India we are in a stage wherein which smart metering technology, PMU, and AMI was being implemented. This is the status of smart grid technology in India. If you see the milestones of energy metering, it started from analog meter, and in 1990s AMR was implemented. This is the smart meter technology. You have nothing. You can ask your student. You can ask your students to take an analog meter, or in a simpler way, ask them to take a digital meter, implement a GPS technology with a SIM, and each and every meter has an unique number. Like since it has a SIM, you can communicate to the meter with the help of the SIM than the GPS technology. Okay. So we have a separate app or communication protocol for communicating between the meter. Okay, what you people can do is each and every block you can implement a meter, right? For example, let us say you have 5 blocks in your college, A, B, C, D, E. All the 5 in each and individual blocks, you can implement a meter, and these meters can be called as a smart meter. And these meters you can communicate with the help of a guide, graphical user interface, like as it's shown in the presentation. And you can monitor, you can control the meter individually. In that meter, apart from calculating the current and the voltage, you can also calculate the harmonic level, reactive power, power factor, etc. Depends upon the sensor which is being used inside that meter. So these things will help you to control the overall system. Okay. So this is the overview of meter. See, the functions of the meter are, it should respond to the theft. Theft in the sense electrical theft, pilferage. And it should have a remote connect. And it should have outage management, load control, energy accounting, appliance control, demand response. So depending on the intensity of the project, you can implement all the functionality in the same meter, right? And we have 4 categories of meter in India. Okay, depending upon the capacity, like category 1 will cater the need of 1 kilowatt, and each has its own advantages and disadvantages. So by implementing smart grid in a smart city, it may extend it to smart grid and renewable integration, smart security, smart transport, smart building, smart waste water management, e-education, etc. On the whole, it is one of the main component in implementing a city for a smart city. If you implement a smart grid technology in your city, invariably it may allow other technology to become a smart technology. Okay. So some of the research problems in which you people can concentrate are, as I said, you have to implement time of use tariff to the customer. For that, you need to implement proper optimization technology. And you need to know how to minimize the losses. You can minimize the losses like R&D, T&D losses, aggregated technical conversion losses, and find out a suitable communication protocol. For example, I said now you can implement 5 meters and a common graphical user interface, and how these meters can be communicated, how meter to meter can be communicated. So you have to have a common protocol, and the integration of distributed generation in smart grid. And you have to give a quality power supply and self-healing in the smart grid, and addressing the power quality issues in the smart grid. These are all the research problems in the smart grid. At PSG College of Technology, we have implemented many smart grid technology concepts. We have a dedicated smart grid laboratory. And apart from that, we have around like 1.75 megawatt of solar PV system implemented in all the roofs of the PSG Tech. Apart from that, this particular project sponsored by AICT and DST, what we did is like we have taken a 10 kilowatt system and a 1 kilowatt of wind turbine generator, which was being connected to a conventional grid, and we made a smart grid concept, a prototype, an emulation type of a smart grid concept. So like this, here we can see what we did is like we have taken a 5 kilowatt of a monocrystalline and 5 kilowatt of a thin film, totally of a 10 kilowatt of a system, and that was given to a common inverter, right? And that can be connected to a grid. And it was used for supplying a 10 kilowatt of a load. Okay, we have used for supplying lighting load, computer load, etc. Right? Apart from that, what we did is this is a 10 kilowatt system. Apart from that, in the 10 kilowatt of a solar, we have taken a wind turbine generator as one of the input. And in that, we have emulated different types of wind turbine generator. Like we have taken SCIG, SRIG, PMSG, PMDC, and we try to give inputs to the generator with the help of a DC motor driven by MATLAB. And through DSpace, we have given input to the drive and we have run the motor. And we have simulated a model in MATLAB, like how my motor will respond if the speed is of 1 meters per second, and how my motor will respond if the speed is of 25 meters per second. So that was being emulated, and through a DC motor, we have driven 4 different types of generators, right, individually. And that will be given to a converter, wherein which this is called as a hybrid converter. It will take 2 inputs from 5 kilowatt monocrystalline, 5 kilowatt thin film, and the third input was from a generator, any one of the generator, right? If you come out with any designed generator, we can characterize the generator in our emulator lab. How your generator will respond for one minimum speed and maximum speed, and how it will respond for unbalanced load condition, like this. So what we did is, like, we have taken an alternator as a grid, and alternator speed can be varied, and unbalanced situation can be made, and fault can be implemented physically, and you can check how your generator, how your solar PV system, how your converter will respond to it. So this is one of the smart grid system what we have developed in our lab. So another thing is a flexible solar tent, and apart from that 5 kilowatt system and 10 kilowatt system, we have developed a small 1 kilowatt system. This project was sponsored by DRDO, and a smart tent was developed, a 1 kilowatt system, and it is also being integrated into the conventional grid. And this is the smart grid lab we have developed in our college. So this lab consists of these experiments, like it will have a real-time control, reactive power, harmonic mitigation, etc. DSM. It has a block-wise power consumption and solar. As I said, our blocks are being powered by solar. 30% of our energy consumption, we are utilizing it from solar. So here it will tell you real-time table view of all the blocks. So we have around like 12 blocks, or let us say, in each and every block, what is the voltage, current, power, kVAR rating, power factor, harmonic, current harmonic, maximum demand value, frequency, everything can be monitored by sitting in our smart grid lab. Okay, so this is the schematic view. So during the time, we can check which block is consuming more power and which is having more losses. Okay, for that we have implemented sensors everywhere, and it is being monitored. Okay, and we have a separate software tool for monitoring it. And each block, like HVAC, UPS value, this is the single line diagram of the entire block. Okay, so finally, if you have any doubts related to that concept, you can mail me in a private chat, and I will give you all these details. Okay, so how to implement the smart grid technology in your college, that can be done very easy. Okay, so this is the facilities available in our college related to smart grid. We have a Center for Excellence in Solar PV System, Solar Thermal System. This is the Center for Renewable Energy System. Like we have around like 1.75 megawatt of solar PV. And this is our wind emulator lab. You can see we have 4 different types of generator. These 2 generators are being developed at PH Tech itself. Another 2 generators, we have designed it and we have outsourced it. And these are all being driven by a DC motor, as I said, and the input to the DC motor is from the MATLAB. Okay, so and we have run with the different type of resistive load and inductive load, and we have created a grid, emulated a grid, and we'll check the response of the generator. So this is the smart grid lab. And this is another lab sponsored by DST again. It will tell you about how solar energy can be used for humidification and for air conditioning system. Fine, this we have discussed. So in conclusion, the emergence of solar smart grid will lead to a more environmental and sound future with better power supply services, etc. But however, still we are in the stage of implementing in meter level, like AMI and what else, PMU, synchrophasor technology, etc. We need to go in try to implement everywhere from generating station to the utilization station. So implement the technology of a smart grid. Okay. So with this, I conclude. If you have any doubt, you can ask me now. Before that, I would like to share some of the book published. So this book, Solar PV and Wind Energy Conversion System, here we have included all the MATLAB blocks and M codes related to solar PV, wind and fuel cell. So this book was published in Springer, USA. And this book is more related to how electronics can be included in a textile. This is my PhD topic, and this is one of the emerging topic to implement the concept of wearable electronics and telemedicine. And this book is also talks about optimization technique. We have taken 15 use cases and we have checked how different optimization techniques can be used in different use cases. We have also given MATLAB blocks in it. And normally we people will learn power electrons with the help of a PSpice, but here we taught you about how to implement power electronics concepts in MATLAB. So we have given step-by-step procedure of implementing each and every individual blocks and how to improve, how to develop a converter, etc. It was published in Cambridge University Press, London. And again, this book is all about automation involved in textile machinery, taking from ginning to garment manufacturing technology, how each and every machine works, and what are the working principles. Sensors used, motors, automation, PLC, SCADA, everything was explained here. And this book was written by myself and my good friend Albert Alexander. Here in this book, we have given the entire concept of power quality. We have taken from generation to the utilization part, and how to mitigate the power quality indices. And we have given again with all the power quality blocks, toolbox, etc. And this book will talk you about deep learning concept, how it can be used for electrical engineers, and with the help of Python. And this book will tell you about artificial intelligence in smart grid and smart city, published in Springer. And this is another book yet to be published. It is in press. Again, myself and Albert published this. This will talk you about different types of converters exclusively for solar photovoltaic system. Again, here in this book, we have given all the MATLAB blocks, and you can use it freely. All the blocks are given it in the appendix. It is an open source, and the M code, everything was given in this book. And this book is exclusively for electrical engineers. We have taken all the types of softwares, like from PSIM, LabVIEW, MATLAB, PSCAD, DesignTake, how to simulate with the help of these softwares, and how to design a PCB. So those softwares was given in this book. So with this, I thank you all participants for patience listening. If you have any doubt, you can ask me now, or otherwise you can mail me in this mail ID, or otherwise you can check my website or WhatsApp me in this number. If you have any specific doubt related to smart grid, you can text me in the chat box, or you can ask me now.
Sir, there's one question in the chat box, which was actually put up in the previous session itself.
My question is based on electric vehicle. How to select DC motor if I need to carry 50 kilogram weight and 2.5 kilometers per hour? It's a very, very low speed. I don't know for what application. Can you specify the application? You have to calculate the torque. Of course, weight you have to, for example, you have to use a very simple logic. F is equal to ma. You have defined the mass and you have defined the acceleration, right? So what is the force required? Apart from calculating the force, you need to calculate the rotational force. Rotational force is nothing but the torque. So use this basic principle to calculate the torque requirement. Okay. Hope I have answered the question. Any questions you have?
I think there are no more questions, sir. So,
We have 5 minutes more. We can wait for 5 minutes. If you have questions, you can ask. How can we do the power frequency balance in case of smart grid or microgrid? So power frequency means you mean synchronization or what? Synchronization you have to implement it in the inverter itself, right? The inverter should be in a position for that only. In the inverter you have to implement those algorithms what I have mentioned here. So I have mentioned many algorithms. So that in algorithm should have the parameter of what? The power, the frequency, the phase, the sequence, everything. Okay, the inverter should know how to get the input as well as the output. What is the drawback and challenges of self onboard charging? You mean onboard charging, right? Onboard charging, I don't think so. It's a disadvantage. It has self-weight. It has some self-weight. How can we make the braking system automatic? I don't know what type of question is this. How can we make the braking system automatic? I could not understand the question properly. Braking system, you no need to make it automatic because you need to. It is not a self-driving car, right? It should be manual, of course. Why you are driving car fast? Because you have a brake. You are assuming that you have a control over the brake because of that you are driving the car fast. So I don't think so. Braking system should be automatic. I'm doing research in DFIG connected with the grid. According to you, what is the important factor to be analyzed? DFIG still it is a very big. It is a version actually. You need to know how to address the FRT problem, fault right through capability, and low LVRT problem, low voltage right through capability. And in DFIG, you should know how to implement the concept of STATCOM. These are all the things you need to address in the DFIG. Are PMU responses fast enough to take restoration action on time in case of any outage in the system? Yes. It should respond. Then only it can be called as a PMU, because PMU will have timestamp and it has all the sensor built in, right? So it should respond fast. At the same time, it should also have the capacity to self-heal it. Okay, then only I can call that as a PMU, or otherwise it will be a common SCADA function based metering system. Dear sir, I need attendance link of first session. Okay, it will be posted soon. See, all the attendance, you want attendance link or feedback?
sir, there's no attendance link, sir.
Yeah, there is no attendance. See, all the participants, you please kindly note, we have an automatic attendance taking system. So it will, once you log in and log out, all the attendance will be taken minute by minute. So login time to log out time will be your attendance time. So it will be taken default. It will be based upon your login. If it get disconnected, you have to log in again and you have to mark your attendance. Still 2 minutes more. If we have any further questions, we can ask me. Being a beginner in field of electric vehicle, how to finalize DC to DC converter or inverter for any electric vehicle? See, you have to check the capacity of the motor. let us say your battery capacity is 24 voltage, and your motor capacity, what is the voltage requirement of the motor? Based on that, you have to select or find your DC converter, because the input voltage of the battery, you know, that is 12 voltage or 24 voltage. And what is the input voltage of the battery? So based on the requirement of, what is the input voltage of the motor? So based on the requirement of the motor, you have to select the DC to DC converter. One. Second question answer is, you need an inverter if and only if you have a AC motor. So you need to know the input voltage requirement of a AC motor. So based on that, you have to convert the DC value to an AC value. Based on that, you have to select the inverter value. Hope I have answered your question, Mahesh. So it's time now. If we have any further question, how to fix up the rate per unit? What rate you mean? In case of charging rate you cannot fix it, because it is because you are getting the charge from the EB discom, right? That is the problem in Indian sector, because there is no standard policy overall, right? It is only for the individual state. I don't know which state you belongs to. I hope you belongs to Karnataka. In Karnataka, they have fixed an electric vehicle policy, and they have the utility price. You need to check it with that. Dr. Mazumdar have asked a question. In case of lead solar connected or wind powered microgrid, there will be power variation due to the uncertainty of the grid. So there will be some power disturbances that will lead to frequency deviation. How to tackle that? For that only you are developing an efficient converter, right? Even if there is any variations in the load, source, because of the solar or a wind, it has to be synchronized constantly. That will be taken care by your efficient DC to DC converter or inverter. That is where our electrical engineer plays a major role. Okay, so hope I have answered your question. If you have any questions further, you please mail me or WhatsApp me. I am happy to answer you. At this point, I would like to thank again all the participants for your active participation. And also I thank Dr. Archana and Dr. Lata ma'am for constantly being involved in all the activities of this workshop or this FTP. And we will be in touch with you, all participants, frequently. If you have any further questions, you can also post it in our WhatsApp group. We will be able to answer all your questions. Thank you all. Again, Dr. Archana, you please take over and give instructions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you. On behalf of all the participants, also, I would like to thank Dr. Ashok Kumar for such a wonderful, extremely informative, and energetic session, because it's not so easy to take up a session of 3 hours continuously. Thank you so much, sir, for the effort.
Thanks, Archana. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So we're winding up the session now. So the next section will begin at 2 p.m. So I request all the participants to join back by around 1:50 p.m. With the same link.